This session is a customer panel, and it's about charting a path to a successful implementation. Today, we have a wonderful group of customers who are going to share their knowledge about the journey they had with implementing Acumatica. I'm David Durego, and I'm in charge of product marketing here at Acumatica. I've been with the company for just about 8 months. So I started in May of 2024. New to Acumatica, but not new to ERP. In fact, I have close to 30 years of experience on the construction ERP side, and actually was a consultant at one time helping customers with their implementation. With me today, as I mentioned, are some amazing customers who have done a phenomenal job in implementing Acumatica and have pearls of wisdom that they would like to impart upon you. So I would like to introduce Helen, Nick, and Sean to you. I'm going to start with Helen, having her introduce herself. Helen, share your role, your company, what it is that you do, and how long you've been using Acumatica.
Hi, everyone. Excited to be here. I'm Helen Ventus. I'm the Executive VP and co-owner of HKC Construction. We are a general construction Canadian company based out of Toronto, and we service clients across coast to coast. We took on Acumatica last April, and we started doing a 3-month implementation. So it's a fast track implementation with Acumatica. Our go live date was July 1st. So we are very new with Acumatica, and we are learning as well, but here to help anyone with any questions they may have.
Fantastic. Thank you, Helen.
I'm Sean Valancourt, EVP of Information Systems at Polywood. Polywood is an outdoor furniture manufacturer based in northern Indiana. We were founded in 1990, and we make long-lasting, durable outdoor furniture, some from recycled plastics. We have an infinite recyclable process, so all the plastic that comes into our facility goes out as a long-lasting, durable piece of furniture. My role there is Executive Vice President of Information Systems, and I help the technology serve the business to accomplish the business goals. We've been on Acumatica since March 2022.
Amazing. Thank you. Thanks, Sean. Nick.
Hey, my name is Nick Tulip. I am a software manager for a company called QPAC out of St. Augustine, Florida. We've been on Acumatica for coming up on 4 years. We are a industry leader in the manufacturing of multi-motor plenum fan systems for commercial applications, ventilation systems. Here to answer any questions you might have on a successful implementation.
Wonderful. Thank you. To review the agenda, what we're going to go through today, it's about 30 to 40 minutes of panel discussion, and then we'll have about 20 to 30 minutes of Q&A. We have a mic in the middle of the floor here. As I mentioned, this is really targeted at someone who's in the midst of their implementation or about to embark on the implementation journey. From a learning objective perspective, really we want to cover a variety of different areas. As you know, implementation is comprised of a lot of different facets, a lot of different phases, a lot of different stakeholders. So we really want to talk about the initial planning and preparation, talk about vendor selection and customization, the implementation process. Change management, as you know, is huge, and you have to effectively manage change for the organization. So we want to get into a little bit about that. And then some tips and tricks and lessons learned from the panelists. So I would like to start in the area of initial planning and preparation. I'd like to start with you, Nick. And I'd like for you to share with the audience how you prepared your organization for the ERP implementation and what steps did you take to ensure its readiness?
We were in a position where we had no systems. We had one giant Excel file that the business operated out of. But when I joined the company, they're already on a track plan to move to an ERP. So all I have to do primarily is vendor research, figure out what is the best solution for us before we could dive into sort of, what that vendor could support us with, right? There's a lot of conversations with internal stakeholders that we've had specifically around process. What is our process today? What do we want it to look like in the future? And we also work closely with our partner iTech to make sure that we could, implement all of that.
Sean, Helen, anything to add to that?
Having that we had a 3-month fast track implementation, it was really critical that we were prepared from the get-go. The first step was to really get a buy-in with your employees. We really want to make sure that they were excited about this ERP system and to really understand that we're implementing something that would really benefit them in their daily duties and really make their workflows more efficient. more efficient. Number two was to create a implementation team to select key players from each department that would be accountable for learning certain components. And we kept that team small just so that then they can go out and branch out and teach their departments. Number three was when you meet your Acumatica implementation team, they provide you with a schedule with all the workshops that you're going to be learning. And what we did was we created an internal schedule in conjunction with those workshops. And we really utilized the Acumatica University courses. They are fantastic. So every workshop that we came to, we were super prepared because we had completed the courses. We had all our questions written down. So we utilized that time with Acumatica to make sure that they were able to answer our questions while they were configuring the software, right? So I know, implementing an ERP system is very intimidating and a little stressful, but being prepared ultimately and creating an environment of collaboration between you, your teams, and the implementation team is critical.
And I'm still new, so I can say this, but I was blown away when I came to Acumatica and found out that all those training modules, learning things were all a part of your software subscription, right? It was not an extra fee. And I worked at key competitors of Acumatica in my past, and that was not the case. Nick, you said something too that was actually on the big stage today about really taking a look at your processes, and just because you've always done it a certain way don't necessarily mean you want to do it that way, right? Correct. There's a reason why you're implementing a new ERP solution. So you really have to be cognizant of all that to ensure that you're taking a step forward.
Absolutely.
Let's get into vendor selection and customization. And I'd like to start with you, Helen, in terms of what criteria you use to evaluate an ERP vendor, and why did you choose Acumatica?
Just to give you a little bit of context, prior to Acumatica, we were using QuickBooks Desktop in conjunction with Procore's construction management software. Procore did have an ERP integration. However, it didn't communicate effectively with QuickBooks. So ultimately, we had a lot of financial discrepancies and the data just didn't match up on both softwares, which is a really big problem. We are growing at 1,132%, being one of the fastest GC companies in Canada, according to the Globe and Mail. And we essentially needed a scalable, flexible, cloud-based software that we can grow with. And after doing a lot of research, we realized that Acumatica was best in its class, and it offered the financial component along with the project management component. So ultimately, we went with Acumatica.
Love it. I didn't pay her to say that, by the way.
Yeah.
That was all in her own words. Sean, I understand you have an interesting story that you'd like to share with the audience.
Usually when you're implementing an ERP, it's a planned out process. I think I can say usually, where the first part of that process is vendor evaluation selection. But in our case, we were on a legacy Sage ERP and we were growing, and we got to the point where the 80th user would log in and the whole system would crash. So we went from, we know we need a new ERP, but there's not full executive buy-in, to how quickly can we get an ERP done. So we didn't really have the luxury to sit around and say, okay, let's evaluate 5 different vendors. We had already seen Acumatica. We liked what we'd seen, things that we didn't have, APIs, an aggressive 2 times a year release schedule, cloud-based. So we did a rule-out process instead of evaluate everything. We just said, okay, let's see if Acumatica won't work for us. And it checked all the boxes. Cherry on top, our existing VAR was an Acumatica reseller. So someone that really knew our business was able to help us make the transition to Acumatica. The interesting thing is our go live actually happened, we were growing 40% a year because this all happened in mid 2020. And I don't know if you guys remember, there was a certain something that happened, and everyone was staying at home, and the federal government was sending them checks, and they're staring at their backyards and saying, what should I do with this? We sold 3 months of manufacturing capacity in 1 weekend, Earth Day 2020. So we were on a broken ERP and growing 40+% a year. So thankfully, Acumatica was able to be our savior.
Love it, love it. So the pandemic really worked in our favor. So we're very appreciative of that.
Yeah, so
Yeah, good stuff. All right, well let's move over to the implementation process because that's super involved, right? Like I said earlier, there's a lot of different facets of that. There's a lot of different people that are involved. A lot of emotion running through the organization, right? We're being forced through this change. So Nick, I'd like to start with you, and there's multiple questions, but my first one for you is, can you describe the most challenging phase of the ERP implementation process, and how did you overcome that?
So I think one of the most challenging phases for us was going from no concept of a bill of materials, parts, and getting all that put together to where, so when you take an order in, for example, right, you are using parts, and we are in a manufacturing edition of Acumatica, so there was a lot of work that was needed in order to get that started. And so that was, I think, probably the most challenging phase for us, is to understand how that would work and then bring that to the business and explain, here's how we're going to operate in the future, right? We're creating parts on the fly. We're putting bills of materials together, obviously, as part of that. And then you're rolling all that up into an order. Although all of this over an API, by the way, not, it's native functionality that we're just leveraging the APIs for. We also, side by side, for a period of a few months, we were running a sandbox installation of Acumatica, so all of this could be tested, right? And so we would do real operations in a test environment, just to make sure that everything was behaving as it was supposed to. And we learned a lot in that process. We changed some things, and with that, so in other words, we customized what Acumatica offered out of the box by working with our partner, iTech. Yeah, I would say that was probably the most challenging. And then migrating that data was a breeze, just simply because, again, APIs, and you'll hear this word a lot when it comes to integrations, whether, your company directly does them or not, or your third-party implementer does them. The APIs is what really helped us migrate.
Gotcha. And so you really leverage that with external integrations as well, those APIs?
Yes.
And work closely with your VARs to kind of help.
We have customization packages, which is, one of the strongest features of Acumatica, because you can control web services, you can control business events, you can control all these things. So if we wanted notifications, we got notifications. If we wanted to send notifications to customers, we could do all of those things. We could trigger them by an API, et cetera. But in terms of just order management, getting parts on board was probably the most difficult, uplift. Yeah.
Yeah. Amazing. Yeah. I'm always blown away, again, new, so I can say these things, but, I'm amazed at the capabilities with API and that platform, mobility, people working from home, people staying at home, a lot of capabilities, field workers like getting into the system. So pretty awesome. All right, let's move into change management. So as we discussed, ERP, huge, affects every part of the organization. So you really have to manage that change. And there's a lot of emotional baggage that comes with that, right? I mean, people feel like they're losing something. Other people are excited about things. Helen, you said something that I think is just amazing, which was you really tried to find champions within the organization, right? Somebody within these different departments who can be the champion to everyone else. And I think that's a really, really important part of change management. But Sean, so explain to me a little bit about what strategies you used at your organization to manage change and ensure user adoption, and then how did you address people who might have been reluctant to jump on board?
Yeah, both Helen and Nick kind of touched on some of those strategies. The first thing we did was select champions in each area, in operations, in finance, and say, okay, we need you guys to dig into your current processes so that we understand what we're doing today, and then we can decide, do we want to do something differently on the new ERP? We had a lot of people who are very comfortable in our existing ERP. We'd had it for over a decade. But one advantage of having an ERP that's crashing on you is it's a lot easier to sell change to a new ERP when your accounting team was an hour into an operation, then they lost it all and they had to go back and start it over again. But yeah, having those champions, having them work with us throughout the process. So it's not a tech team thing. This is a whole company thing that we're doing.
Right.
And then, like Nick said, having that sandbox environment, okay, we're going to have you do this in your existing system, and then you're also going to do it over here in Acumatica. You're going to get used to it. Utilizing those training materials was really helpful. Really, the key thing is having those people feel a sense of ownership for the project and not just, we're doing this to you.
Did you have anyone who was like really emotional, dug their heels in, and any issues with that?
We certainly had grumbles,
Yeah.
but no one was like dead set against it. Thankfully.
Yeah. How about you, Helen? Any?
I was gonna say, we had one champion that really took us under her wing and really carried us through, and that's our director of construction, Cassia. She's here. She really learned Acumatica amazing, and she really dove deep in almost all the components, even though it wasn't her department. But
wow.
she even guided the finance department in certain criterias, which really impressive, and we're really thankful for her on our team. So thank you,
That's
Cassia.
awesome. So let's talk about go live and post implementation. So Helen, go live is relatively new for you, right?
Yes.
Less than a year, right?
That's right.
So that's awesome. So what factors do you think contributed to a successful go live?
I mentioned the steps that we took, and Nick also mentioned, having the sandbox really available to us was very critical. So we did a lot of testing. So anything that we were doing, we tested it first, made sure it worked, and then brought it over and did it on the actual platform. But I think once we went go live, I felt like we weren't alone just because we went go live. Our VAR, which was with Soft Engine, in particular, Cal Litt was our representative. He was a very big support for us, and he is still here for us. Actually, he's been a very great partner, as well as the implementation team. John Bosmos is over there in the corner. He was great as well. They gave us 45 days after implementation. So once you go live, you have so many questions still. I still have so many questions. We're only 6 months in, actually. But it's having that support system, right? And knowing that we can reach out to these individuals for this help is critical. And it makes things just more comfortable to know that we can continue growing and building on these partnerships.
That VAR plays a very, very important component in this, right?
Actually, I'll just a shout out to our VAR. They just, Soft Engine just won Rookie of the Year.
Oh, nice.
Yes.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Well, there's a lot of talk about, okay, once you're live, right, you can breathe a sigh of relief, right? And then there's the other that's like, now the work really begins,
now
right?
the work really does begin.
Yeah, definitely,
exactly.
definitely. Did you have do you have any three of you have any interesting stories like post go live, right after going live, and issues that came up and how you dealt with those issues?
We thought we were planning ahead. We're kind of a seasonal business because we're in outdoor furniture. So we went live in March, but because of the pandemic oddities, instead of May, which is our usual peak, we literally went live the peak week. We had the most number of orders
Wow.
the week we went live.
Yeah.
Somehow pulled it off, a few miracles, and I'm just going to lean into this. Having a VAR who knows your business, Martin Associates did a great job for us, definitely helped immensely because they knew our business and not just the technology of the systems. Closing was sticky that first month.
Yeah.
It took like probably a couple weeks instead of what they were used to doing, but
Yeah.
I do have a piece of advice, actually.
Oh, great. Yes,
I'll
please.
throw in there. In hindsight, we probably should have implemented the software at our slow season, which we're in construction. The finance department, the operations department is typically in Q1 is slower, but we started in Q2. So it's best to really implement the ERP system. If you do have a few months of the year that are slower, I would start it then, to be honest.
Yeah, because you went in June, right?
We
Is
did
that
July 1st, right?
July,
So-
which was right in the
Sounds like you
middle
made
of
the same
build
mistake.
season.
It
Yeah.
was right in the middle of the year where project had already started. So we actually did migrate our projects over. We continue to run parallel with QuickBooks to the end of the year so that we can close off the projects that had already started. And that was critical for us.
Yeah.
And a lot more work for our finance department because they had to double enter everything.
Right.
But December 31st, they're off of QuickBooks, which is great. And now they're just on Acumatica.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Awesome. Love it. Love it. Thank you for all of that. Great. So let's talk about lessons learned. So, Sean, let's start with you. So what advice would you give an organization just starting on this ERP journey, what research should they do, or those that are looking to optimize they're in the middle of it right now? And was there anything in your process where in the middle of it you said, hey, we need to kind of optimize and change it up a little bit? Do you have any lessons learned from your journey?
One thing I would say is make sure you have a good partner. And this is going to sound repetitive, sorry, but also understand your business processes and don't just keep going with those business processes because that's what we've always done. To some extent, because of our compressed timeline with our implementation, we're like, well, these things are nice, but we're going to have to kind of stick with this existing business process. Now, a couple of years later, I can hear in my head Jeff Rose from Martin Associates saying, hey, you should change the way you have your ship via set up because this other way is way better. And we're like, we don't have time for that. Well, now, 2 years later, I'm realizing why he said that, and we're going to have to make that change in order to support our business. So if you have the time, slow down, get your business processes right, make the data changes that you need to make because it will pay dividends in the long run.
Garbage in, garbage out, right?
Yeah.
So deal with it ahead of time. Yeah. Nick, any pearls of wisdom you want to share with everyone?
Not that hasn't already been said, really. I think, again, your partner is your expert. Relying on the experts is a pretty good strategy. But you have to understand what your needs are, right? You fulfill that. And letting them kind of drive in positions where, we just don't know what we don't know. Right. And relying on them has been key. Last cost, for example, for an item, right? We wanted to understand our costs and we had a plan in mind and they came in and said, well, no, run like this and you'll save yourself a whole lot of time. Without having the due diligence and having put together what our process is today, what it could look like, and giving them that opportunity to chime in and guide you, I think would be a mistake. Because we're not all experts in ERPs. We've used them, but they're also different. And like I said, you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah, for sure.
We did a big bang approach where we cut over not just the ERP, but like 5 auxiliary systems, our shipping software, our EDI, and we shut down on Friday. And then Sunday night at 11 p.m., third shift started and we were on Acumatica. I do not recommend doing that if you can at all avoid it. It's better to run systems in parallel for a while.
That's right.
But we had a couple miracles and some all-nighters, but it happened.
Made it through. Maybe just to kind of summarize some key points that I logged in my head, right? Which is, take the time to plan. So, the famous words, plan your work your plan. Really take the time to do that. Find those champions within your organization who are really, really excited about the change, who might be feeling the challenges of the existing system, and send them forth in the organization, right, to evangelize. Really open up the lines of communication and be aware that things are going to happen, right? And respond to those things. Be willing to kind of pivot if you have to. Run parallel. That's huge. It can be a drain, right? Because like you said, you're doing double entry, but it gives you that peace of mind in moving forward. Wonderful insights from Helen and Sean and Nick, and I thank you very much for all of that. Audience, this is your time. So if you have some questions that you would like to ask our panelists, please step forward.
Because you're talking about going from 3 significantly different systems. You are on Excel, you are on Sage 100, and you are on QuickBooks with an add-in. And my question is, because of the vast difference in what it was costing you, as opposed to what became your Acumatica costs, how did you measure in advance what you figured to be return on investment?
We were experiencing a lot of wasted employee time where they were waiting on the system. It was dead time. They were not productive. Also, as a tech team, we're kind of holding things together with shoestring and bubblegum. We didn't feel like we could build on what we had. And as a company growing 40% a year, expanding into new things, we really needed to reset our foundation. So I'm sure we did something for the board, but it was more of a fall off a log, obvious decision. We have to do this for us.
We were using QuickBooks, which was cost efficient, but we also had Procore. And for those of you who don't know, it's a very robust project management software. It is a fantastic software, but it is costly. It's very costly. So with the same price, we were able to now get a financial platform in conjunction with a construction platform and put it into one. So essentially, we actually saved money this way, though the construction management portion of Acumatica is not as robust. It's doing its job, and it's good for our company. So we're actually saving.
There are some costs that are not quantifiable, which is, what is the value of a missed delivery date, right? What does that mean to you, to the customer? Will they come back? You know, there's a lot of things in just data entry that is wrong, right? Which then causes all kinds of issues downstream that you weren't prepared for, both in Acumatica or without Acumatica, right? When you have bad data, bad things happen. And so for us, guarantee and transparency, like in what is our inventory, what is our lead times, right? These were things that without guarantees there, our business doesn't function. So hard to quantify that, but.
So we are fortunately doing everything you guys have mentioned and recommended, and we have the time, fortunately, to go through this. We've been using Computerease as our main ERP for the last 15 years or so, and realizing that it doesn't play nice with anybody or integrate with anything. And so we have many different systems that we need to be able to integrate, because there is, no matter how hard we try, no one single solution that does absolutely everything we need it to do. So I'm curious, in this case, what do you guys have that you need to integrate as well, such as are you using a different payroll system outside of Acumatica? Are you using other things for time management, things like that? What else are you integrating, and what challenges have you had there?
We have a pretty broad stable of other software. We use Paylocity as our HRMS. We actually have a homegrown manufacturing execution system and warehouse management system, which made our year-long cutover easier. We were going from integrating that with Sage, which had no APIs and was kind of, you hope the data goes in and stays in, to actually being able to directly integrate with Acumatica and have that be a reliable system of record. We use ShipHawk as our TMS. They actually built their Acumatica integration for us because we thought they had an awesome piece of software. Ravi's over there. ShipHawk's a great company. EDI software. We've got a lot of different things that are integrated. Our e-commerce, which is going to be Shopify next week, also integrated. So yeah, we view Acumatica as kind of the hub. It's a hub and spoke. We don't make it do everything. We want it to be our system of record. That's what most of our data and analytics is coming out of. And it's a really good system for that. Solid foundation, and it plays well with other systems.
One of the key points for selecting Acumatica was data portability. And when we think about data portability, we're talking about your ability to do whatever you want with your data, whether it is to connect to it, export, or integrate systems from one to the other. Acumatica offers that. So while we use external systems, for example, like Paycor for salaries, etc., we just export data and we just import it into the other system. In other areas, we use an API to immediately, push data, or, if not, you're going to batch things up, right? And you're going to send those. What's important is to have the capability, and that's, a strength of Acumatica.
Because we're so fresh and we're fairly new in Acumatica, and we're still kind of learning the generic components of it, we haven't branched out to get any third-party vendors as of yet. But we are here, and we are looking at getting an estimating software integrated, and as well as ADP. We found out today is also integrating with Acumatica, which is great because that's what we use. So we're really excited to now kind of start using these add-ons and learning about the ecosystem of Acumatica, because there's so much it can do, right?
And one of our philosophies is you can't build everything, right? So we've really tried to develop a platform with these open APIs so that we make it easy to integrate with other systems, so that you can get the customized, configurable solution that's right for your business. And it sounds like all three of you have taken advantage of that capability, or Helen, you guys will be soon.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah,
for sure.
exactly.
Have any of you guys noticed any sort of modules, components, features that aren't quite up to par? What I mean by that is, like, we're currently on QuickBooks Desktop Enterprise with WebGili Integrator for our stores or channels. QuickBooks Desktop Enterprise crashes every 3 days. I can't run it continuously for 3 days or more. WebGility occasionally posts orders without payments. It can't post prepayments into QuickBooks. We were looking at order time as an option, but they apparently don't know how to do sales tax in an e-commerce setting. We were looking at QuickBooks Online, Intuit Enterprise Suite, but neither understand inventory or inventory allocations. Have you noticed any things that have required you to use Band-Aids or just kind of dumb workarounds to complete your integrations or complete your transitions to Acumatica?
There are things that we're accomplishing with our MES that Acumatica doesn't do very well. Thankfully, we already had that in place, so we didn't need Acumatica to do that. But yeah, it has its hiccups. Everything isn't perfect. We're currently working through some things where MRP takes a really long time to run, but Acumatica has a professional support team, so it's not like we're just figuring this out on our own. So yeah, there are issues, but there's no issues where it's like, oh man, I don't see a way out of this, or there's not progress being made.
We work with clients that are either coming from a Sage environment or QuickBooks, and they're really embedded with Procore. And so we have a divide internally with their team where accounting needs a better ERP, but project management doesn't want to change what they know. And the cost of the Procore platform is very expensive, and you sort of have to pay for it all up front at the beginning of the year. And so how did you work through that change internally with your company and sort of get everyone to understand? And then the second part of that question would be, how did you absorb that cost burden when you made the transition?
That was probably one of the biggest hurdles, to be honest, was leaving a software, and we left Procore because it was coming to our term. Leaving Procore was really difficult because it's such a friendly user platform. Everything is there, but our project managers, our coordinators, our accounting team knew, because the integration wasn't communicating effectively with QuickBooks, and they knew that the data at the end of the day wasn't accurate on both systems. It was really frustrating. So knowing that, yes, Procore you're able to complete the project, you had your RFIs, submittals, drawings, change orders, invoices, everything was a lot more efficient. The financial portion of having accurate data outweighs the construction management portion. It's not to say we'll never go back to Procore, because Procore does integrate with Acumatica. Right. It's just a matter of, do you have the cost to now be able to pay for both platforms? Yeah. And who knows, hopefully in the future we might do that if we outgrow the construction management portion of Acumatica. But from what I'm hearing here at the summit, it's constantly growing. They're adding new features. So they're saying that in 3 to 5 years, Acumatica's construction platform will be as good as Procore. So we won't need to have that integration.
I just want to add to that too. And Helen hit on it, right? So Acumatica does integrate with Procore. So maybe it's kind of you don't have to do both, but maybe let's address our finance situation first, and then we can address the construction management side of things. And then the other part that I wanted to echo that Helen mentioned is the investment that Acumatica is making in the construction industry. So in the last year, we've brought on a number of individuals who have deep, rich construction experience, because we are trying to create a very robust construction platform. So, it's a real situation though that you have to work through. Yeah. So hopefully a couple of different ideas to help work through that. Thank you.
I heard you say run parallel. We're coming out of QuickBooks, okay? And essentially, we don't have a lot of things tied to QuickBooks. So we're just going to lift QuickBooks into Acumatica and then start to do our building. But if I run in the sandbox within Acumatica and QuickBooks parallel for a while, do you think I need to run them both live? Or do you think you could run in the sandbox, test it, and then go to QuickBooks because I was trying to avoid running them both live.
The reason I was suggesting that is because we had a large ecosystem. To me, it sounds like you have a pretty simple use case, and if you're seeing everything good.
One of the things that's overwhelming coming to this show, and we just literally sent our check like 2 weeks ago, okay? So we haven't even gotten implementation team yet. And I need to talk to you too, because we're in the concrete business, so I need to talk to you. But it seems overwhelming in what's available. And I feel like we're missing something, or we're missing a lot because we don't know what we don't know. I guess the answer is probably just rely on your VAR to keep training you, teaching you what your opportunities are, what you can and can't do.
We did not try to go take advantage of everything that Acumatica could offer. What we said is, let's replace our old ERP. Let's get to equivalent functionality so that we can then go build upon that and give ourselves the time to build upon it versus let's try to bite off 15 new things because this is a more powerful, better system. We just said, let's replace what we're doing and then we can build on it. Then we can learn.
Yeah, the dollars and cents comes first, right?
Yeah.
Making sure that that's right. Everything else is in Acumatica. I mean, you want a CRM, you want sales, you want, different modules. They're there. They might not be the best because there's some companies that only focus on just those very specific aspects, but don't bite off more than you can chew. So be agile about it, figure out a sort of what you want to get to and figure out how to chunk that out and eventually work with your partner and you'll get there.
So we're about at the same level that you are right now. We haven't had implementation kickoff even. But one of the things that I was curious, what were the resources that you wish you would have had during the implementation? When you tell the departments how much time are they going to have to be dedicated to implementing and doing their day-to-day job? We're similar to yours where our system's down, everybody's going to have no problem switching, but still we're going to ask them, work a system that breaks all the time, and also I need how many hours for us to be successful. So I was just kind of curious if you can kind of answer that resource question.
It's very intimidating. And it is a lot of work, especially with us because we had a 3-month implementation. We really prioritized learning Acumatica and going through the workshops and learning all the modules and understanding them versus our duties. At least the finance department did that. And it was critical for them to do that so that we got up and running by our go live date. I guess it's painful. You kind of have to just go through it. And again, it's just key players, right? So it's not like your entire organization's, working overtime. It's just those key players that are going to be the champion in those areas. So
obviously it's going to take extra above and beyond effort. We had our key tech champion, Adam Stoffel. He led the effort and he put in a lot of extra hours, honestly, probably too much. One thing I would say is consider the rest of your life. Don't over-index on it. If you need to push it out a little bit longer, let that happen. But I think for the non-tech folks, we asked them to spend about 20% of their time working on the new system. Often that meant 20% extra because can't necessarily still have to do your day job.
yeah.
We're in the final stages of discovery, hoping to sign a contract here pretty soon. So looking at pre-steps, one of the things in my mind is data migration. So what are some steps that you guys use to kind of clean up your data before getting into implementation, or what did you find you had to do kind of after you kind of set up your skeleton process?
Uniform formats, for example, for phone numbers, zip codes, things like that you can have, right? Proper casing on names, and not to get into the whole list of these things, right? That's something you can do yourself a favor on and make sure that is right and clean, properly formatted, no duplicates, these kinds of things. Beyond that, you have import scenarios in Acumatica that makes it easier to import very specific entities like customer, lead, opportunities, whatever it is, data that you have. And you can do a series of mappings and things like that, right? I think that's the easy part, right? Getting your data to where it shines, it's, not blinding. In other words, when I go from page to page, it shouldn't look different. A first name or last name should always be, cased properly everywhere you look at. But it really also depends on how much data you have, right? And what you're trying to do. If you're trying to bring things into a relational sense, it can be cumbersome because you have IDs that carry from parent to child and so on. Again, I want to iterate the partner. I feel like some of that is where their strengths are, right? And maybe you don't have to do all of it, right? There is a cost that goes with that, but it's worth it.
Your sandbox environment is your friend. Like, run import scenarios. If you don't like what you see, something didn't work out, you can just hit reset and do it again. And that's what we did. We practice and practice. So when it came time for go live, we had pretty high confidence of how it was going to go.
Quick follow-up to that. It kind of deals with data as well, but how much data did you transfer, like import into your like transactional data versus just beginning balance type data?
Yeah, we did all of our sales orders, all of our invoices, and then we went back, I think, 3 years on financials, and then it was just summary. You have to be careful because you can do too much with no gain and only headache.
For us, it was very straightforward. We did not migrate our customers. We only migrated our vendors. At every project that after go live, it was all new projects. So we didn't even migrate our old projects. So the construction, our implementation, our go live was really straightforward compared to manufacturing. So bring over whatever you can. If you can finish off if you have projects that are closing, then you can just close them off and then start fresh on the construction side of things.
Helen, Sean, Nick, thank you so much for sharing your experience. Big round of applause for our panelists.